Nombre sobre todo nombre, reinarás por siempre, siempre igual, exáltale. Cristo sobre todo nombre, reinarás por siempre, siempre igual, exáltale.
My name is Alex. I work for the Evangelical Free Church of America, started an organization called Immigrant Hope that seeks to go beyond advocacy to building capacity. In 1986, when Reagan passed a real reform that was really an amnesty, there were so many that didn't get served because there weren't enough sources of help. So my passion is the church, and I wanted the church to play a significant part. So what we started doing was how do we get our churches involved? Because there's so many churches. So the main thing that we want to do is really set up Immigrant Hope as a way to help our churches make this very, very complex thing easy. So the government does not want us giving advice to immigrants because we mess it up, they said. So the issue is, how do we get our churches and our servants trained in how to do it? So this workshop, 10-minute one only, is just a high-flying overview of what it takes to get your church to provide services to immigrants. So Immigrant Hope's mission is to give the hope of the gospel, help in a legal pathway, and a home in the church. So how do we set up a church to become a government-sanctioned center? What we want to do is provide a very broad overview that will really help people to be able to know what are the different processes and steps. So there's a PowerPoint presentation that you have that talks about where the training is, how to register, who to talk to. So what I want to then talk about is the overview. 5 different major steps. And so the preliminary stage is when your church is interested. The investigative stage is, does the TIA or Immigrant Hope fit your mission, your community, your people, and resources? The application stage is, are you ready to pursue opening an Immigrant Hope Center? And then the provisional stage is, are all the pieces together? Because this is a very complicated thing, but we're trying to make it easy. And then the final stage is where you're finally approved and are able to provide legal services. So I'm going to break them down, go a little bit deeper into each one of these. The preliminary stage is asking the question, is your community interested? Casting vision, talking to your church, exploring the biblical base for compassion ministry to immigrants, discerning God's call with your congregation leadership, and carefully addressing the concerns and misunderstandings, because this is a very complicated issue. You're starting a legal services in your church. So first thing is to get your church thinking right biblically. Second of all is gather support. You need to really ensure that the center is willing to make a substantial long-term commitment. This is not like Awana. This is not like we decide to do it this year, but not next year. The requirements of the government include holding on to records for 7 years, just like tax returns, because you're holding on to people's legal information. And so then, the last part of it is, of course, you need to evaluate, I'm still under the preliminary stage, evaluate your center's ability to welcome and integrate immigrants. So we want to go beyond just giving them the legal. We want to show them the love of Christ. We want to get them involved. We serve everybody, whether they become a believer or not. Nevertheless, we don't run away from the fact that we are servants of Jesus Christ, and would love for them to join our community. The second important stage is investigation. How does Immigrant Hope fit your mission, your people, your resources, and your community? So under the investigation stage, you need to assess the need. Who is in your community? Do you need legal services? Is the need being met by others? I recently spoke at a community that in reality, when I just was driving there, I could tell it was not a great fit. I mean, it was far away. It was not a community that had a lot of immigrants, but the pastor had a real heart for it, and that was great. But need to understand the strong commitment and everything that's involved. You need to really assess the need. You need to assess the center of what's going on. So really, a church needs to ask, certainly there's immigrants in that area, but is providing legal services the best way for your church to serve? And you're the only ones that can assess that. Is the leadership and the congregation ready? There's a verse in Proverbs that said, a fly in the ointment ruins the whole bottle. So that's your church. The third stage is really investigation. Does Immigrant Hope fit your community? So assess your resources. So it's still under investigation. Do you have the funds to launch? Do you have the facilities to launch? Do you meet the legal requirements? We'll help you on that. Assessing the people. Do you have potential leaders and legal workers and a pool of volunteers? This can't just be the pastor. In fact, if it's just the pastor that has this desire, it's not gonna go. He's got to have investigate that he's got enough people around him. You need to find partners. One of the things that we try to do in Immigrant Hope is to make sure that we work holistically, and we love to get churches working together in a holistic way. In fact, that's one of the big wins. When we get churches of different denominations working together beyond our doctrine into something that is really special, which I consider just to be a picture of what we're going to be like in heaven when we're working together. The fourth stage is the application stage. Before that, you've been looking at the legal, you've been asking the questions about your church's fit, you've been looking at the application, but now it actually comes down to the application, and the question is, are you ready to pursue opening a center, an Immigrant Hope TIA Center? TIA is our partner. I gave that information earlier. You need to ask Immigrant Hope to send a packet, and this packet contains all of the information that the government's going to require. Don't get blown away by it. There's plenty of help. It's not easy, but it's doable. You need to have a launch team. Individuals that can do the counseling, the computer, the scheduling, all of those need to be considered. Probably the core of it is sending people away for legal training. And it's only done in a few places in the country. So whoever does the legal services is going to have to fly somewhere. Immigrant Hope moves the training around the country. We've done it north, south, east, and west, but essentially it's 40 hours, and you need to get that training in order to be considered. Then finally, you need to schedule a visit. So probably the most difficult little speed bump is making sure that you get people trained. And by that, we mean not only the information, but also the experience, because the government, when you send in your application, wants three things: information that you have been 40-hour trained, at least, that you've had some experience, and we help with all those things. And thirdly, filling out the detailed application. All of that has got to go together. And then, of course, scheduling a site visit by Immigrant Hope. The last stage is the provisional, where you've got to show that you've got a business plan. The government wants to know that you're going to be sustainable. You've got to have the experience, the knowledge, and then all of that goes to the Board of Immigration Appeals that decides if you can be accredited to provide legal services. And then finally, fifth, last stage is when you've been approved and you begin offering legal services. And you've got a certificate that you put on the wall. Believe it or not, it still takes immigrants a while to find you because by definition, immigrants have, especially undocumented, have issues. They've run from anything. That's one of the reasons why I decided putting it in the church would be the best place, because it's already there. They already know you. Even if they're Muslim or Buddhist or anything else, you've been in the community already. So who better to be able to provide those services? The first one we started was in Brooklyn. It took 2 years before they really started heading steam, but now they've got so many clients. And the church that used to struggle and fight because they had all these different communities in the church now are one, because the one thing that held them all together was their immigrants and the immigration and the gospel and the opportunity to sanctify. Now they are government recognized. They provide low cost services because the government does want you to charge. They just don't want you charging a lot of money. So that's the good thing about it. So that's my time, and boom.